We right? Are we away?
Yep, looks like it. Yep, all good.
Right, well, morena koutou, and welcome everybody to a very different council meeting this morning. I do hope that you're all well at home in your bubbles, and thank you for the calls that of people looking out for one another to see how you are managing. And also, I'd just like to thank the staff, Jeff and your team, for keeping the operation of council going in such a smooth manner. I have to say, before we begin the formal part of the meeting, this has been so much smoother, this transition into level 4 this time than it was in March last year. So we have certainly learned a lot about learning to live with this COVID, even though the Delta strain is much more contagious. So we seem to be lucky here in Rotorua at the moment, but we have to wait and follow all advice. So I'll begin by saying the meeting is live streamed, and welcome to the public that are watching in or those that are going to look at it later. Could I also remind all councillors, when you're not talking, could you put your mute button on? That's to stop interference and interruption, and we get into an overlay of conversation if that happens. And can you use the right hand raise hand? It's in the participant list at the bottom if you wish to speak. And then when you finish speaking, can you put lower hand, please? And I'll also ask Una if she could keep a bit of an eye on that. When you're chairing on these meetings, watching the participation and the attempts to come in is quite tricky, as well as listening to what you're wanting to say and making sure we're on the agenda. Welcome, Councillor McPherson. I see you've joined us, and you're not the only one that had some technical challenges to get in on time. So welcome to everybody. Una, I think if you could go through the Zoom etiquette for this meeting, because I've asked Una to do more than she usually does sitting beside me, that would be really helpful. And Una, could you cover 2 points of order? I think that's going to need some clarification, so we try to manage the interplay between individual councillors and my chairing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all, and I hope you are all continuing to stay safe at home in your various bubbles. So we did previously, in the lead up to this meeting, send out the meeting etiquette for in Zoom, and we will be following those. Just a couple of points that I want to raise. I think the Mayor has already raised these, but just to go through them again. Where at all possible, please keep yourself on mute until you are actually asking a question. That way, as we've talked about, we just minimise that traffic, and it is much easier for us to all be able to hear what the speaker is actually talking about at the time. I will be keeping an eye on the mute, and in case it's needed be, I will help assisting in terms of turning on your mic. If you forget to turn it on prior to speaking, I'll also help in turning it off if you have by any chance left your mic on when it's not needed. In terms of raising, if you have a question that you wish to ask, please use the raise hand icon, and you can find this either in your reactions part of your iPad, or if you have clicked on the participants column and you can see everybody, then you can use the raise hand in that section as well. In reference to points of order, what we would like to do there is, if you have a point of order, take yourself off mute and turn your microphone on straight away and state you have a point of order to raise. At that point in time, the chair, the mayor, will ask you what your point of order is, and if you could please clearly and concisely state what you believe to be the point of order. Once you've done that, the chair will make a decision on whether or not to accept that point of order and what course of action may be required. So this may mean that the speaker is able to resume then talking, or it may mean the speaker is directed by the chair to do something differently. I think that covers everything there. And so back over to you, Madam Chair, for the meeting.
Right, so we'll begin our meeting, and I welcome in Councillor McPherson and Councillor Kumar. So we have our full complement of councillors. And I'll ask Councillor Maxwell to open our meeting with the council prayer, please.
Kia ora, can you hear me, Morena? I've unmuted.
All good, Trevor.
Thank you. He inoi tātou. Kia tōno, kia tātou katoa te ata whai o tō tātou eriki ai hukraiti. Me te aroha o te atua me te whiwhinga tahitangi ki ta wairua tapu ai anei a. Ake tonu atu, āmene. May the grace of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us now and evermore. Amen. Kia ora koutou.
Well done, and he's muted himself, so I think we're away again. We have no apologies. Are there any declarations of interest? And I'll give a bit of time for you to raise your hand if there are. There appear to be none. Una, could you verify that? Thank you. We'll move now to urgent items not on the agenda.
There appears to be, there does, Steve, there appears to be one from Councillor Bentley.
Certainly. Well done with your hand raising, Councillor Bentley. Yes, I'll take your point of order. Your urgent item not on the agenda. Councillor Bentley.
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay. It was a question. I realise it's not going to be an urgent item, but it doesn't appear anywhere else in the minutes that agenda. Sorry, that I can ask this question. I just wanted to pose a question to Deputy Chief Executive Stavros Michael with regard to COVID testing of our wastewater plant. Are we doing that daily or weekly or on a regular basis? Thank you.
Look, Councillor Bentley, I'll certainly allow that. It's not really an urgent item, but we are in a peculiar stage at the moment, and I think it would be great to get the assurance. And this is certainly a very different sort of meeting. So, Stavros, are you able to answer that?
Morena tadu katoa. Councillor Bentley, our wastewater, together with many wastewater discharges from across the country, are tested by ESR on behalf of the public health. And my understanding that takes place daily to ensure that we have some early traces of any indicators for the presence of a COVID-19 in our system. Thank you.
Thank you, and it would appear we've not had any traces at the moment, Stavros.
That's correct.
Thank you. Is that satisfactory for you, Councillor Bentley?
Thank you.
All right, good to know. Thank you. Right, we move on now to the confirmation of minutes. The council minutes of the 29th of July, which are page 5 in your order paper. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the motion that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 29th of July be confirmed as a true and accurate record?
You have it moved by Councillor Donaldson, but you do have a question from Councillor Tapsell. Oh, she's raised her. Yep. And the mover is Councillor Rotorua Tate, the seconder.
Right, so we have a mover and a seconder for the motion, and we have a question from Councillor Tapsell.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is just a request on whether on page 11, the item Economic Recovery Project Update, it can now be stated what that update was. And my request for that is because at the time it was confidential due to commercial sensitivity, but it's now being made public and is widely known. And given the amount of ratepayers' money that was spent on it, it's just a request as to whether we are able to inform the public through the minutes or elsewhere what that Economic Recovery Project update was.
Certainly. And that's quite tricky in terms of protocol. If you're saying it's now widely public, it means the confidentiality of those minutes clearly aren't confidential, and they ought to be. And really the confirmation of minutes of confidential are only as to whether they're a true and accurate record. I don't think council has been public on what the item was, and I seek an answer from the Chief Executive on that, please.
Kia ora koutou. Through you, Your Worship, you're correct in saying that with regard to minutes, the purpose of this section is to confirm whether they're a true and accurate record. You can't use this as an opportunity to change decisions or to alter the way that the meeting was actually run at a later stage after the fact, so to speak. I was just looking at the minutes themselves, and I'm not aware that this is a widely publicly reported situation at the moment with regards to that project.
Thank you. And that was my understanding, and so therefore the item should remain confidential. Otherwise we breach our understanding of what confidential really means. Councillor Donaldson, you have your hand up.
Yes, Your Worship. Just speaking to the confirmation of minutes, I think what you're saying is the minutes of that meeting as it was at that point in time, whether the Economic Recovery Project has been since publicly released, and I think Councillor Tapsell's right in that it has. We can't change that in the minutes. The minutes are the minutes of the meeting and they stay the same. The Economic Recovery Project, as disclosed, can be discussed in another forum, but not in the minutes.
And that is technically correct. So we'll bring that up in another format. Are there any other points of clarification? Does anyone want a round of discussion at all? All right, I'm going to move that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 29th of July 2021 be confirmed as a true and accurate record. All those in favour, could you please raise your hand? And then Una will monitor that for us.
That is carried.
Thank you, carried.
Can I just remind everybody that we are using the raise your hand icon as well for voting. So when the Mayor requests to raise your hand, she's talking about the clicking on the icon in the raise hand
Participant. In the participant section. I hope we don't get good at this. That means we're in lockdown for too long. We move now to confidential items to be released. That's page 15 of your order paper and your report. Right. I need a mover and a seconder to just to receive the report, that the report confidential items to be released be received. I have a mover, Mercia, and a seconder,
Rokawa Tate.
Rokawa Tate. Thank you. Right, we move now to the report of the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee meeting held on the 12th of August. I need a mover and...
Sorry, just to interject there, Chair, you have a mover and a seconder for the release of the confidential items to be received.
Yep.
You need to put that to the vote.
Yes, I've jumped a gun. I now put that the report confidential items be released, be received. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, or wait till the hands.
And that is carried.
Thank you. Now we move to the report of the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee meeting on the 12th of August, page 18. I need a mover and a seconder to receive the report, the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee meeting on the 12th of August be received. Do I have a mover?
Mover is Councillor Tate, seconded by Councillor McPherson.
I now put the motion to the vote. All those who are prepared to receive the report, please raise your hand.
It is carried.
Thank you. You've got to put your hand down again. Right. That the following recommendation of the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee meeting held on the 12th of August be adopted. Recommendation 1, that the Rotorua Cemetery Reserve change of reserve classification. I'll read it out for the public, that the council changed the classification of part of the Rotorua Cemetery Reserve, being part section 26A SBRS of Rotorua, from Recreation Reserve to Local Purpose Cemetery Reserve, pursuant to section 24 of the Reserves Act 1977 by notice in the New Zealand Gazette. That is the recommendation. Do I have a mover?
So the mover is Councillor Rokawa Tate, seconded by Councillor Wang.
Now we open it for discussion or questions.
I've got a question from Councillor McPherson.
Thank you. Yes, this is technically not part of this motion. It's an associated issue of great importance to some people. And that the question is, will this enable or change or modify the possibility of people having natural burials? I understand this question might have to be left on the table to be answered at some later time. Thank you.
Councillor McPherson, this is really, this is the change of classification, that is all. And the discussion that you raise is very dear to my heart, and I think we'd put it over to an operations and monitoring meeting of a further committee. It is an issue of public interest.
Yes, Chair, that would be the place for it to be referred to. It's an operational item, so we'll ensure that that can be raised by the councillor at the next Operations and Monitoring Committee.
All right, thank you. Right, are there any other points of clarification or discussion? There appear to be none. I'm going to put the motion, I won't read it again, to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand.
It is carried.
Thank you. We're getting it, Una. We move now to recommendation 2. I'll read it. Rotorua Lakes Council / Rotorua Economic Development, terms of reference to support inner city transformational place of making projects. 1, that council approved the terms of reference included in attachment 1 in the report, And 2, that the committee recommend to council to approve in principle that Red develop through to business case the car park at 1134 Haupapa Street and car park building on Pukuatua Street as an option for delivery of transformational placemaking projects in the city. So do I
It is
have?
moved by Councillor Donaldson and seconded by Councillor Yates.
Thank you. And we move now to any points of discussion around this or questions for clarification.
Councillor, no.
No.
Don't have any questions. Oh, there's one. Councillor Bentley.
Councillor Bentley. Over to you.
You just need to unmute yourself, Councillor.
Councillor Bentley.
Now I'm there, am I?
Now you're right.
Righto, just to clarify for my own peace of mind, the consideration was to turn the car park into apartments. It didn't mean the demolition of the building to build new apartments, did it?
That may be better for Jean-Paul to answer. Una?
That's right. Just waiting for Jean-Paul Gaston to come through. Thank you, JP.
Morning, Your Worship. Just in regard to that question, we have a ground level car park on Haupapa Street, but we're also a strata title owner within the car parking building. So the ground floor is in fact belongs to another party. So if there is a business case to look at changing the entire building, or as the councillor highlighted, demolition, that would be something that would require an additional parties discussion. So that hasn't been envisaged at this stage.
Is that satisfactory for you, Councillor Bentley?
Yes, it's fine, thanks.
Thank you. Are there any further questions or clarification?
There appears to be none.
All right, I'm going to put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand.
It is carried.
Carried. Right, we move now to go into public excluded. I advise that there are the 3 items for consideration in the public excluded. The confidential minutes from the council meeting on the 29th of July, the recommendations from operations and monitoring meeting on the 5th of August, and the recommendations of strategy, policy and finance on the 12th of August. And the reasons for confidentiality are commercial sensitivity, to enable commercial or industrial negotiations, or to protect a person's privacy. Do I have a mover and a seconder?
Got Councillor Maxwell and Councillor Kai Fong.
Thank you. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your right hand.
Carried.
Thank you. So I'll allow a moment for people to, might want to, I think we're right. You don't need to grab a drink really, do you? We've been
We do need to give just a minute or two to stop the live streaming.
So if any of you wish to clear